There comes a time in life when the noise around us becomes so loud that we can hardly hear the quiet voice within. And yet in this very moment God is whispering, "My child, this is the time to listen." You see, we often think that change begins when something big happens, a door opens, a miracle unfolds, or a mountain moves. But God is saying, no, the shift begins when your heart turns toward my voice. This is the season when His people are being called to sharpen their hearing, to recognize His words not in the thunder, but in the gentle whisper of truth. God is now moving in ways that may surprise you. He's reversing what once seemed final. Those who were overlooked, those moments that felt wasted, those seasons that seemed silent, they are about to become the solid foundation of what He's building next. Maybe you've been dismissed, undervalued, or forgotten. But hear this, God never overlooks what the world ignores. He takes what is small and hidden and breathes His purpose into it. And if you've faced injustice, if you've walked through doors that were unfairly closed, know that the same God who sees in secret is already turning things around in the open. The tables are shifting. The story is not over. The very road that once seemed blocked will soon become the path that carries you forward. So pause for a moment, breathe, listen. What is God speaking to your heart right now? Because this, right here, right now, is not a coincidence. It's a divine moment. The question is, will you recognize His voice when He calls your name? There are moments in life when we look back and feel like too much has been lost. Time, opportunities, relationships, maybe even faith itself. But hear this, God is not finished with what you thought was over. He is a restorer. Every tear, every delay, every closed door that felt like a dead end, He's been using it all to prepare you for a season of restoration that's greater than what you imagined. God is saying, I'm giving you back what was stolen, not always in the same form, but in a way that carries deeper meaning and lasting peace. The time you thought was wasted was never wasted to Him. He's redeeming it now. The opportunities that slipped away are returning, but this time you'll walk through them with wisdom and strength you didn't have before. This is not the moment to shrink back in fear. It's the moment to rise up with courage. The kind of courage that doesn't make sense to human reasoning. The kind that steps forward even when the path isn't clear. Faith isn't about understanding everything. It's about trusting that God is already there, on the other side of your obedience. Maybe you've been standing in front of something that feels lifeless, a dream, a purpose, a relationship that once carried light. But the breath of God is moving again. He's breathing life into what seemed finished. He's calling forth resurrection in your spirit. This is a season of renewal. The heaviness is lifting, the fear is losing its grip, and your confidence is returning, not in yourself, but in the one who never fails. So don't be afraid to begin again. What's coming alive in you right now isn't just hope. It's proof that God is still working, even in the places that looked beyond repair. There's something powerful about realizing that your past does not define you. The world has a way of labeling us by our failures, our struggles, our pain. People remember who we were, not who we're becoming. But God looks deeper. He sees the version of you that He created long before the mistakes, long before the heartbreak, long before anyone tried to tell you who you are. God is revealing your true identity in this season. He's removing every false label that life has placed on you, labels like not enough, too broken, or unworthy. Those labels were never yours to carry. You are not defined by what you did wrong. You are defined by what God says about you, and He calls you chosen, loved, redeemed, and set apart. Maybe you've spent years trying to earn acceptance or prove your value. But God is saying, you don't have to prove what I've already confirmed. Your worth was sealed the moment He breathed life into you. When He looks at you, He doesn't see your past. He sees purpose. He sees potential. He sees His reflection. This is the time to step back into the name He gave you, the name that carries power, identity, and divine purpose. The world may not understand it, and that's okay, because it wasn't the world that called you, it was God. So ask yourself today, who would you be if you finally believed what God says about you? If you stopped living under the weight of old names and stepped fully into the one He wrote for you? The truth is, you've never been lost. You've only been hidden, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And that moment is now. Sometimes before God brings something new into your life, He begins by clearing out what no longer belongs there. It might be people, habits, distractions, or even old thoughts that keep you from hearing His voice. God is cleansing not just your surroundings, but your inner world, the space where your spirit lives and breathes. Because when the noise quiets, that's when His whisper becomes clear. You may have noticed certain doors closing or relationships fading, and maybe it felt painful or confusing. But what if those changes aren't losses at all? What if they're divine rearrangements? God isn't taking from you. He's making room for peace, clarity, and strength. This is a season of spiritual detox, a time when everything that drains your soul is being removed, so that gratitude, stillness, and divine focus can take root again. When the heart becomes quiet, inspiration begins to flow. Ideas that once felt out of reach suddenly start to appear. Creative sparks reignite. You begin to sense what God has been trying to show you all along. And that's when your strength returns. Not the kind that depends on motivation or willpower, but the kind that comes from divine renewal. God is giving you new energy for the path ahead. He's restoring your ability to stand firm, to dream again, to move forward without fear. Every moment of stillness, every prayer whispered in quiet spaces, it's all part of the preparation. You're not standing still. You're being strengthened. You're not being emptied. You're being made ready. So if you feel the urge to simplify, to step back, to let go, follow it. That's not you withdrawing. That's God cleansing the atmosphere around you, so His presence can fill it completely. What's coming next requires a lighter spirit and a clearer heart, and He's making sure you have both. There's a moment in every believer's life when God begins to refine not just what we do, but why we do it. He looks deeper than our actions. He examines the heart behind them. And in this season, God is calling His people to move with integrity, with purity of intention, and with a renewed sense of holiness in everything they touch. Every choice, every word, every step forward is being sanctified. God is saying, before I elevate you, I must purify your motives. This isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. Because when your actions align with His truth, even small things carry eternal weight. What once felt ordinary becomes sacred when done with a clean heart and a clear spirit. But there's something even more powerful happening right now. God is restoring prayer. For many, prayer has become a routine, a checklist, a habit, a ritual done in haste. Yet God is breathing life back into it. He's transforming prayer from a formality into a force. He's reminding us that prayer is not about saying the right words. It's about entering His presence with honesty, with surrender, with trust. When prayer becomes real again, it changes everything. It softens the heart, sharpens discernment, and brings peace in chaos. It's not just communication, it's communion. It's the place where human weakness meets divine power. So if you felt like your prayers have lost their fire, don't give up. This is your reminder that God listens, not to perfection but to sincerity. He's not asking you to pray longer, but to pray deeper, to return to that quiet space where your spirit can truly connect with His will. This is how you walk in integrity, through purified action and restored prayer. When the two come together, heaven moves. And in that alignment, you'll find not just strength for the next step, but the peace that comes from knowing you're walking exactly where God wants you to be. There is a sacred mystery hidden within the quiet hours of the night, a realm where the noise of the world fades, and our spirit becomes more open to the voice of God. When we rest, heaven does not fall silent. The Lord continues to speak, whispering truths and revelations that our busy minds often miss in the daylight. Think about it. How many times have you woken up with a thought, a sense of peace, or a sudden understanding that seemed to come from nowhere? That is not coincidence. It is divine conversation. God often chooses our dreams as a canvas to reveal His guidance, His comfort, and even His warnings. In the stillness of sleep, our hearts can hear what our minds resist when we are awake. This is why rest is not just a physical need, it is a spiritual practice. When we surrender our worries and allow our souls to be quiet, we make space for God to move. Our dreams can become sacred ground, a place where heaven touches earth and our hearts align with divine wisdom. So tonight, as you close your eyes, remember, your rest is not wasted time. It is an open door. Ask God to meet you there, in the silence, in the mystery, in the dream, and awaken you with the understanding only He can give. There comes a moment when God calls us to return, not just to Him, but to the very center of our faith, a place where our hearts are undivided, our loyalty unmixed, and our devotion pure. The truth is, many of us love God, yet we still hold on to other altars, our fears, our ambitions, our need for control, or the approval of others. But He is calling us to tear down those divided loyalties and give Him all that we are. This is not an act of loss. It is an act of liberation. When our hearts belong fully to God, we no longer have to chase the world's shifting promises. He becomes our steady ground, our peace in chaos, our light in the unknown. And as we step into new seasons or unfamiliar places, God does not just give direction, He gives stillness. That quiet strength that anchors the soul even when everything around us changes. It is the calm assurance that says, I am with you. So maybe this is the time to ask, what competes for my heart? What takes my focus away from the one who sustains it? Because when our hearts are whole again in Him, we find that the journey ahead, no matter how uncertain, and is filled with a peace that cannot be shaken. There are treasures within you that you may not even realize, divine gifts planted by God long before you could see their purpose. Every talent, every insight, every spark of creativity was placed there intentionally. But often these gifts remain hidden until life's challenges draw them out. You see, God doesn't just bless instantly, He builds steadily. Before He releases greater blessings, He strengthens the foundation. Because if the root isn't deep, the fruit won't last. The storms, the delays, the waiting seasons, they are not punishment. They are preparation. They shape your endurance, refine your character, and teach your spirit to remain faithful even when you cannot see the outcome. Think about it. Gold must go through fire to shine. A seed must break before it grows. The same is true for us. God allows pressure not to destroy us, but to reveal the strength He already placed within. So if you're in a difficult season, don't despise it. This is the training ground of destiny. He is building something unshakable inside you, a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of his coming blessings. And when the time is right, you will realize that everything you went through wasn't meant to break you, but to prepare you to hold what he's been preparing for you all along. There are moments in life when everything seems still, as if nothing is moving, nothing is changing. And then suddenly God moves. What was once fixed begins to shift, and doors that seemed sealed for years swing open in an instant. We are entering such a time, a divine reversal, the season where what was lost will be restored, where the last will be brought forward, and where what seemed impossible will unfold before our very eyes. But this kind of shift demands courage. God is calling us not just to believe, but to act, to take that step of faith we've been delaying, to release the old patterns, the old fears, the familiar comfort zones that have quietly held us back. Because in this new season, hesitation can cost more than failure ever could. Sometimes the miracle doesn't come until we move. When Peter stepped out of the boat, the water didn't turn solid until his foot touched it. In the same way, God is waiting for your movement, your yes, your trust. Those who dare to let go of what no longer serves them will find themselves holding something far greater. Divine exchanges that only obedience can unlock. So if your spirit has felt the stirring, don't ignore it. This is not the time to wait. This is the time to rise, because heaven is moving quickly. And what's coming will be worth everything you've released. There comes a moment when the weight of fear, the lies you've believed, and the pressure of not having enough start to feel too heavy to carry. But hear this, God never intended for you to live under that burden. He is tearing down every false judgment spoken over you, every voice that said you're not enough, every shadow of lack that tried to convince you your story would end in scarcity. The truth is, you were never abandoned. Heaven's resources have already been prepared, long before you even knew you'd need them. Every provision, every opportunity, every open door has been aligned with divine precision. God's plan doesn't operate in shortage, it operates in overflow. Anxiety whispers that there won't be enough, that you'll fail again, that no one will show up for you. But God says, I am your provider. When He leads you out of fear, He doesn't just bring peace, He brings clarity, stability, and renewal of hope. So, if you've been battling silent worries about tomorrow, breathe. The lies are breaking. The chains of fear are falling. And what once felt like limitation is about to become the testimony of how God supplied every need, not just barely, but abundantly. There are promises spoken over your life that heaven has never forgotten. Even when years have passed and silence has made you question if God still remembers, His word remains alive, unwavering, unstoppable, unbroken. What He said He will do. But before fulfillment comes, God often renews the vessel. He is cleansing minds clouded by doubt and fatigue. He's teaching you to think differently, to see through faith instead of fear, because the promises of God can only be received by a heart and mind that are aligned with His truth. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't the blessing itself, it's the transformation that happens in you while waiting for it. And in this season, God isn't just working in individuals. He's calling His people together, those who are awake, who can feel His movement stirring across the earth. This is the time to stand in unity, to lift one another up, to pray and believe as one body. Because what God is bringing forth isn't a small promise fulfilled in isolation. It's a collective awakening of faith. So if you've been waiting, hold your peace. The delay was never denial. God has been renewing your mind, preparing your heart, and aligning you with those who will walk beside you as His promises come to life. The time of fulfillment is near, and it will be greater than you imagined. This is the moment everything has been leading to, the moment when waiting ends and purpose begins. The Lord is moving now. The season of hesitation is over. For too long you've been standing at the edge, sensing that something greater is calling your name. And now heaven says it's time. God is ushering you into new territory, a new role, a new atmosphere, a new alignment. The old cycles, the repeated lessons, the silent seasons, they've completed their purpose. What once tested your endurance has now forged your strength. And with that strength, you're being lifted into acceleration, the kind that only comes after long preparation in hiddenness. In this shift, your spirit will sharpen. You'll begin to discern truth from imitation, light from shadow, divine timing from human impulse. God is not just changing your surroundings. He's renewing your spiritual sensitivity, the ability to hear clearly, to move boldly, to act without fear. The weight you've been carrying, the confusion, the fatigue, the waiting, is being lifted. You are being positioned to rest in God, not away from your purpose, but within it. New divine connections are forming, people who carry a piece of your calling, who will walk beside you in unity and strength. Listen carefully. The voice of the Lord is steady and near. You have been prepared. You have been refined. Now walk forward, for I am with you. You are ready.